Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Switch Statement Podcast. It's a podcast for investigations into miscellaneous tech topics.
This is our 19th episode on Elon to Musk by Walter Isaacson. We'd love to hear from you. Send your comments and feedback to team@thkp.co.
Hey, John. How are you doing?
Hey, Matt, how are you doing? I'm doing well.
Have you ever experienced a miracle?
I haven't, but I do believe that technology can appear to be miraculous. Is that, who is it, Arthur C. Clarke? A sufficiently advanced tech appears to be magic.
One time, it's not unexplainable, but I was getting pulled out by the riptide, and I thought I was going to die, and then a lifeguard came and saved me. So that felt like pretty good.
That's amazing. I mean, that's pretty massive. I think.
So that's the closest thing to a miracle, because I would be dead, and Switch Statement would never have been created. Which, of course, that would have been the saddest tragedy of. That's what they would have cried about at my funeral.
The world would have been far, far worse off if you had perished in this riptide accident.
Well, thank you for that. But so you started to lay the foundation for a nice segue that I trampled all over. But so yes, technology is going to enable miracles, specifically Elon's technology.
This is Elon's goal, is to enable miracles, and Neuralink is one of his primary ways that he aims to achieve this. And the chief miracle he's trying to figure out right now is making people walk again, which is,
right.
That's like a pretty ambitious goal, which if attained is going to be amazing.
Leave it to Elon to, set his sights. He's always good at being like, all right, I'm taking whatever you're thinking, which like by themselves, the people at Neuralink before were already daring to do some of the most ambitious neural interfaces in the world. And then Elon just comes in and be like, no, it needs to do this. It needs to do like this crazy other thing.
I do think he's because I think there's this failure pattern with really, really smart people where they're just kind of like incoherent, and everyone's kind of has their own pet interest. And I think, at least my reading of the book was kind of like, this is the mode Neuralink was in. Like, there are all these brilliant people figuring out these really cool things, but they were sort of like unfocused and scattered in their thought process and in what they were doing. And Elon just comes in and he's like, we're going to make people walk again. And I think that type of leadership where you like clarify, you focus, you cohere. I do think that's a positive quality of Elon and something that he's done in these other pursuits that has led to success. So we'll see. Yeah. I mean, I guess it's years after, it's 2026 now and they still haven't figured this out. So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But
well, I don't know. I mean, and I don't remember if this had been announced. The last Neuralink update, these are really hard problems. He's taking on these long-term scientific investments, like doing this deep research. They have to invent this whole new system that like shoves tiny electrodes into your brain.
Yeah.
And so it's not entirely surprising that they have still not achieved Musk's vision here of getting people to walk. But
what was they had a guy playing Civ, right? Which is awesome.
They did. They had inserted it into someone's brain, and he was able to. And yeah, maybe that was it. He was able to start controlling a computer just with his mind. And so, like, for that person, it's already an amazing achievement. So, arguably already a miracle as of today. But I think if you're a practitioner, your view of the world kind of gets constrained by what's possible in the near term. Like, you understand the domain of possibility very concretely. So I think to a certain extent that almost hems in what you might aspire to, because you're not thinking about getting someone to walk because you're aware of how many blockers there are to like this much more near-term goal.
Yeah.
So I think Elon is good at cutting through some of that, and he's like, no, we want to look at or consider this idealized future version of this without worrying too much about what is possible in the near term.
I think that's very true. Yeah, another thing they mentioned in this chapter is they made a pug's legs jiggle without agony, which I thought was a pretty huge milestone. I mean, I think they had it with agony for a time, but when they achieved
minimal agony, it's pretty
yeah,
good.
because I mean, I'm assuming they'll do the same thing with humans. They'll give like a human the ability to walk, but it'll be pure agony, and then they'll figure out the way to reduce the agony, which is good.
Yeah, how did they evaluate whether or not, like, is there like an agonometer that they were able to stick into the pug?
I was wondering that same thing, because pugs don't always reveal when they're in agony. Like sometimes,
right.
In fact, dogs, I feel, are famously stoic, where they kind of don't reveal that they're in pain.
They'll just prefer to suffer in silence.
Yeah. Apparently they were in a meeting room joking about curing people of random maladies. They were repeating the Life of Brian leprosy gag, where the guy had been cured of leprosy, but he was mad because it ruined his begging career.
Right. Bloody do-gooder.
Yeah. So just some off-color joking in a random Neuralink meeting.
There was a really good, like, super nerdy quote in there where I need to see who this guy, Jeremy Barinholtz, he was talking, and this actually goes back to what you were saying before about how Elon wanted them to dare greatly, essentially. He said that Elon felt that controlling a computer with your mind is nice, but it doesn't have the same limbic resonance as making paralyzed people walk again. And I looked into this a little bit, and because I had never heard anyone say limbic resonance before, and it's actually a real term. There's a Wikipedia page for limbic resonance. It's not just like some concoction this person made up. It's the idea that the capacity for sharing deep emotional states arises from the limbic system of the brain. So this is kind of like this effect, this cognitive effect of two people interacting, and like it's almost like in the Absent Council.
Yes, what was the ability called?
The gift.
It was the empathy.
The empathy.
They called it the empathy. I think it was called that.
Limbic resonance sounds like the empathy.
Yeah.
From the Absent Council. Great book series. Everyone should go read it.
Yeah, go check out the Absent Council at every bookstore near you. And then we go directly back to Twitter with some hard-hitting, news reporting. Now, this Taibbi guy, Taibbi,
I think.
Taibbi? Okay, thanks. Just butchered that name completely. Was Taibbi a reporter?
Yeah, he's a journalist.
Okay, and then what was the that thing called? It was like the Twitter files,
The Twitter
right?
files,
Where reporters were looking into this. Yeah, so Taibbi was looking into inappropriate Twitter censorship, basically like politically motivated Twitter censorship in certain cases, like the Hunter Biden laptop article, which I guess was initially censored by Twitter. And Yoel, who is still at Twitter at this point, we discussed Yoel in a previous episode. Yoel actually played a part in censoring this Hunter Biden laptop article and later regretted it because it was kind of legitimate news. Like, there was actually a Hunter Biden laptop and...
Right. My understanding, I mean, at least this is what Walter Isaacson says, that it was validated, the question of whether or not there was a Hunter Biden laptop. So, and yeah, I mean, I tend to... And I wouldn't go as far as to say I'm a free speech absolutist, but it seems like it should be possible to report on something, even if the facts aren't 100% true. Like,
yeah,
or they're unconfirmed.
Yeah, you just report that it's unconfirmed. Like, you need to be a responsible reporter. But yeah, I'm generally a free speech absolutist when it comes to news. Or being a reporter. And there's obviously nuance. Like, I will say, I think the Hunter Biden laptop was kind of it's hard to explain how I feel about it. And, I am a liberal, so I'm sure it's kind of biased based on that. But it strikes me as one of those pieces of news that, like, should not have been such a big deal. But it was made to be this massive deal. Also, it was kind of like a weird piece of news because... It almost seems like fruit of the poison tree, right? Because didn't he drop his laptop off at some place that was meant to fix his laptop and they broke into his laptop? Is that even legal at that point?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know nuance of data privacy in terms of you have taken your computer into the shop, but it seems like it should be, if not expressly illegal, like impliedly illegal for you to violate the privacy of someone who's taken your laptop into your shop.
Yeah, and that does present an additional kind of responsibility question of like, should you be reporting on something that was obtained illegally? And it's like, sure, I guess so, but it's also, I don't know. It is a surprisingly hairy issue, in my opinion, like whether to censor this or not, because I think there's like real points on both sides, I guess.
Yeah. One thing I do actually want to do quickly, just to take a step back. So basically, just to lay a little bit of the foundation. So you have Twitter, up until Elon takes it over, it's this, in his view, this completely woke organization that has heretofore been doing a bunch of shady censorship activities. And then so Elon takes it over. Now he has access to all of this historical information internal to the company. And then he's like, all right, reporters, like, come in, like, find all the salacious shit that this company had been doing, and, like, so that we can blow it up and say, like, look at all of the censorship that was going on at Twitter, all these fly-by-night relationships that Twitter had between itself and the government.
Yeah.
And then he's trying to just kind of, like, blow the doors wide open on the old Twitter and say, like, all right, we're going to do it all right this time.
Right. Yeah. No, this is extremely useful context. So he's actually he's giving reporters sort of unfettered access to the logs of what Twitter censored. And that's where this Hunter Biden laptop story comes from, because Twitter had censored this at the time that, the story was active.
And it seems like the grounds for which they were suppressing the story were pretty shaky. And basically they're just like, it was really just because it was bad for Biden, and then they're like, we don't want to worry, like, have people worry about this.
Yeah, I don't recall if they did give the logic, but Yoel did. I think they explicitly stated that he regretted censoring it, like he felt like it was he should not have censored it, basically. But I don't recall if they said why he did censor it, like whether it was because it had been illegally obtained or because its validity was in question or what.
Yeah, so they give an example of one of the purported justifications, which was claiming that it violated policies against using hacked material, or might be a part of Russian disinformation plot. But like, he described those as being flimsy covers, which Yoel and Jack Dorsey conceded later that it was, suppressing the story was a mistake.
They did suppress a Hunter Biden dick pic that James Woods somehow came across. James Woods, great man, posting Hunter Biden dick pics on his Twitter for whatever reason. And I wrote, probably good that they censored this in my notes.
Yeah, the First Amendment doesn't give you the right to share pictures of someone's penis who he never intended to share publicly.
Yeah, despite the, supreme journalistic value of a dick pic.
The public interest. The public has a responsibility, has a right to know what Hunter Biden's penis looks like, John. Like, free speech absolutist. Yeah, and it is funny. It is funny because I feel like you have these people, and if you'll allow me to go back to the earlier point about free speech absolutism, it's so funny because when anyone says they're a free speech absolutist, they immediately list out, like, well, of course, you can't say X, Y, Z, but, like, aside from that, I'm a free speech absolutist. And it's like, no, you don't understand. Like, if free speech absolutism means, like, no one is a free speech absolutist, because necessarily it should mean that anyone can say anything, and the government shouldn't suppress them.
I think it feels good to say that you're an absolutist at anything, but it's like any form of absolutism is going to suffer from that. Like, it's always going to have these sort of qualifiers where it doesn't apply.
Right. So, and like, it's just an incredibly nuanced question. And so I just think, I think at the end of the day, no one is really a free speech absolutist, especially once, and I'm starting to get into the next chapter, but once people start tweeting all your flights, that's when you stop becoming a free speech absolutist.
Yeah, it is funny. It's like such a perfect example of like, now that it's happening to you, you feel differently about it. But I did want to mention in this chapter, they talked a little bit about the suppression of Trump stuff, because, there's tons of, Trump has his whole sort of media machine. And this was during the time where he was trying to get elected and sort of claim all this election fraud in Georgia and whatever, and also defend the January 6th rioters and things like that. A lot of this material was censored. And they talk about this concept of Russiagate, which I guess Russiagate was, Russia, it was trying to get Trump elected. Right. So they were sort of flooding, social media with all of these pro-Trump posts. And I think this is sort of what Russiagate is. And basically, go ahead.
But Russiagate specifically, my understanding is it specifically refers to their meddling in the 2016 elections. Because I think wasn't that when all the like Cambridge Analytica stuff blew up? Or was that even earlier? Am I?
No, you're right. It was around 2016 because that was when I started at Facebook. And that's when that Cambridge Analytica thing happened right when I started at Facebook.
Okay, so the most specific thing was the leaks of the Hillary emails. WikiLeaks posted a bunch of U.S. State Department emails from, I think, Hillary Clinton. And those were acquired by a Russian hacking initiative.
Interesting. So this was Russiagate. They were trying to flood social media with these bad Hillary emails to make her look bad.
Yeah, essentially. And so I guess Russiagate as a larger scheme is essentially just the collusion between Russia and the Trump organization to get him elected in 2016.
Yeah. But it sounds like there was a point where Yoel said that he thinks that the censorship that happened sort of against a lot of the Trump stuff was legitimate.
So there was an allegation that the FBI had spied on the Trump campaign, and then apparently the mainstream media wrote that those allegations had just been whipped up by Russian bots and troll farms, and then Yoel Roth said that he reviewed the accounts that were posting those allegations, and then none of them showed any signs of affiliation to Russia. But nevertheless, Twitter executives, they didn't challenge the mainstream narrative that the FBI spying on the Trump campaign was actually just whipped up by Russian bots.
Oh, that it was whipped up by Russian bots, but they didn't find enough evidence that it was whipped up by Russian bots.
Well, yeah, I mean, and I don't know. I think it's subtly different than that. It's more like the mainstream media had a Russiagate narrative that was not supported. Like, that Twitter did not have evidence to support that. I guess if you're looking at it through the lens of the Hunter Biden laptop story, it's like if you have a story that is not well supported by the facts and you want to suppress it, shouldn't you be applying the same standard to the mainstream press if they're alleging that something is just whipped up by Russian bots, but there's no evidence to support that?
Yeah. Wow. So I mean, this stuff is pretty, like, because I vaguely remember this stuff happening and I just wasn't paying enough attention to the news. But this stuff is, like, legitimately, like, I don't know, kind of crazy. Like,
it's complicated to even get your head around. There's so many parties here because you have the FBI, and the core allegation is that they spied on the Trump campaign. So there's two parties. Then it's the mainstream media reporting about that allegation and then saying that it was Russian bots. And then you have Twitter who's talking about their allegations about. So it's like it's turtles all the way down. There's so many.
And not to mention, Jim Baker, who was like the head of FBI's legal team, became the head of Twitter's legal counsel, which is just makes it even more hilarious and more evidence that there could possibly be political motivations.
I still haven't completely understood why this was such a big thing. I guess the point was he used to work for the FBI, and then he, I guess, went to work for Twitter.
Yeah. I think the presumption is he worked for the FBI during liberal administrations, and that he has a liberal bias, and he's the chief of Twitter's legal counsel. So if he has a liberal bias, he's probably doing things that bias Twitter towards liberalism or whatever. I don't know.
I guess you could argue that this is like the deep state that people keep talking about.
Right.
It's like, wait a minute,
Exactly.
this general counsel of the FBI goes and becomes general counsel of Twitter.
Yeah, they think it's impossible that, someone who's spent his entire life working in law has any integrity, I guess. I was listening to a podcast about the Jack Smith stuff. He's the guy that tried to bring indictments against Trump for stealing evidence and keeping it in his Mar-a-Lago bathroom.
Yeah.
It's like a hilarious case. But, the Republicans are just like attacking this guy's character. And there's just zero evidence. Like, the guy seems like a 1 billion% like high integrity individual.
Yeah.
And yet they're like, oh, did you obtain this like toll information illegally? And it's like, no, I obtained it completely legally, and it's totally normal standard operating procedure.
Oh yeah, I mean Jack Smith's a straight shooter, and he has done. It would be interesting to look into his past because he's handled some of the largest criminal organizations. He was in Europe, I think, and he was trying to prosecute these large criminal organizations over there.
Yeah, dude, he seems legit. I was briefly skimming his wiki page after this, podcast, and I don't know. I'm like, I want to learn more about this guy. He seems awesome. Like one of those unsung heroes of, just doing the right thing, upholding the rule of law, and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. You would never want to get on his bad side. He seems like the kind of person who would just like relentlessly pursue you, but like also just fastidiously, ethically, like doing through all the proper channels. But he would get you, at the end of the day.
Just building this like completely impregnable case against you. My last note for this chapter was just Musk's comment that China's repression of the Uyghurs has two sides.
Our next chapter is called Rabbit Holes. It starts off with a bang. Starts off talking about Elon Jet, at Elon Jet. Now, what is at Elon Jet?
Yeah, so this was the guy that was posting Elon's private jet usage. And Elon, well, obviously Elon hated this for many reasons. It's like people are posting Taylor Swift's private jet usage as she travels to Travis Kelce's games and stuff. Similar to that, where it's kind of like, don't post my wretched excess. But it's also kind of doxing him. It's telling the world where Elon is at any given time, that was sort of the grounds where he was like, this is a potentially serious issue. And there was a case where this stalker who had been stalking Grimes, who was, his girlfriend at the time, or maybe his wife, I can't remember. But this stalker was able to find her. And it was unclear to me if the stalker had used Elon Jet or if he had just, found her like how stalkers normally find people.
This is the thing. It is the tie between this stalker finding Grimes and the Elon Jet account. It's completely tenuous. And there's no evidence that that's how he figured out where they were.
Right.
But nevertheless, he used that as a justification to suspend the at Elon Jet account.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's this guy, Barry Weiss, who is also working on the Twitter files, and he calls out the hypocrisy of this, which it's clearly hypocritical. I mean, if you're going to be this free speech absolutist, all this Twitter guy is doing, this Elon Jet guy is doing, is posting information. He's not, I don't know. It's like, sure, there is the element of it's sort of revealing what your location is. Firstly, it's not like, I mean, I'm assuming this information is like publicly available in some way. Like the Elon Jet guy is just looking at like jet records or whatever, which airlines probably have in some form.
He must have his jet must have a call sign that is in the FAA's public database of flight routes.
Yeah, exactly. So, he's not illegally obtaining this information. So he's literally just posting factual information that, people could acquire. So it seems like an obvious case of like, should be allowed on Twitter. But there's some nuance.
It strikes me that Elon should not have some special switch he can flip to get people to stop. And of course, it's like it's his private jet, so the group of people that could possibly use such a resource is probably limited. But he should have to follow any of the standard policies that an external user would use. Like, can Taylor Swift get that account removed? She would have to go through some formal review process. And then, in theory, I don't know, maybe the process is you tweet at Elon Musk and then he determines whether or not the account should be blocked. But
well, exactly. I mean, I agree completely. It goes back to kind of a rule of law. Like, there needs to be some set of rules that's sort of above the leaders of an organization.
Right.
And I feel like him just making his own rules about his own personal, like, Twitter account, and it just doesn't make sense. Like, it kind of, it feels like it violates his ethos, like his own ethos. So it's hypocritical.
But we didn't really talk about Barry Weiss in the last chapter. She was also introduced as one of these, or did we? She was one.
I don't think so. Yeah.
One of the journalists who was doing the Twitter files or revealing these Twitter files. And so she calls Musk out on this, because she in the last chapter, she was like, yeah, this is crazy. The liberals are silencing legitimate discussion, legitimate speech, and that's bad. And then Walter Isaacson really paints her charitably, I would say, as having this principled stand where it's like, hey, like, it's wrong. It was wrong for them. It's wrong for you to do this too, especially. And I think, like, okay, maybe you can get rid of the Elon jet guy on your tenuous grounds. But then he started banning accounts of journalists who reported that he banned at Elon jet. Yeah. And so that's when she's really like, okay, like, that's actually a load of horseshit.
Exactly. And he also restricted her access, right? Like, he had given her this access so that she could do her investigations for the Twitter files. And once she started making all this noise about Elon Jet and the surrounding stuff, he restricted her access, which is like, it's just so hypocritical to the whole idea of the Twitter files. And she made this funny joke. She's like, oh, I'm sad he won't donate sperm.
Yeah.
Because they had this falling out. And he was joking about the Siobhan Zillis stuff. But yeah, so then, Elon goes on to make some crazy Twitter posts. He posts prosecute/Fauci. This was during the time that, Fauci was communicating to all of us about COVID and best practices.
Yeah, he said my pronouns are prosecute/Fauci.
Yeah, which is, I guess, a joke that someone else had made, and he just felt the need to, like, post it on Twitter. But basically everyone in his life came out and was like, I don't like this. Like, Kimball mentioned that he didn't like it, which, whenever Kimball steps up and says something, that I'm going to take Kimball's side in almost every case.
Yeah, Kimball can do no wrong as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, he's like the one even keel. And I guess he also promoted some deranged RFK stuff that I unfortunately did not write down what the RFK stuff was. But knowing RFK probably had something to do with snorting coke off toilet bowls or something.
There was actually one thing I wanted to call out, and I don't know if this was in the last chapter, but there was some suppression of viewpoints that a small group of scientists, I think you could argue that they were fringe, said that keeping children home from school was actually doing more damage to them than letting them go to school. And that's a question that I don't think anyone has the answer to, like, at the end of the day. Because right. I think we have seen that there were very real harms, like learning loss and what have you, to children that, had to stay home during the COVID era. Yeah. And I think
it's also known in hindsight that COVID did not affect children as much, I think. Like, it didn't, right. COVID mostly was, seriously harmful to, like, older people or immune compromised people.
And at the end of the day, this is a judgment call. Like, and I'm not saying that they got it wrong by keeping the children home. That even if, like, COVID didn't affect children, they could be vectors, carry the virus but not be suffer from it, negative impacts from catching it. So, like, there's still a very strong argument to be made that they made the right call. But I do really disagree that like you should be suppressing. It's like, okay, well, we need to keep all the sheep in line, so they're not allowed to even see these ideas that it might be worse to keep kids home than to let them go. It's like, no, that's not how it's supposed to work. But then there's actually a very interesting wrinkle to that, which is like, what happens if you learn that like Russian bot farms are the ones that are like propagating this viewpoint? You know what I mean? Like, right. Does that become something that you can suppress or block or what have you? And so it again, like I think the overarching point through all these chapters is speech moderation is an incredibly hairy problem without any clear solutions. But yeah, so that was one thing I thought was interesting.
Yeah, no, that is interesting, and I agree that information shouldn't be censored. But yeah, it's such a tough question. I mean, part of me believes that the onus is on the consumer.
Yeah.
Of the material, you know, and the world does need to get better at consuming material. Any material on the internet might be AI generated, it might be bullshit, it might be coming from a Russian bot farm. You just need to always have that in your head at all times when you're reading literally anything from the internet. And I think a lot of people just don't have their defense mechanisms up and running when they're like consuming information on Twitter or TikTok. Although those systems are designed to reduce your defense mechanisms. So that's a massive can of worms. But another can of worms is Musk's father, who at this point is just spouting nonstop conspiracy theory, just batshit insane.
Yeah.
9/11 is fake type stuff. COVID is fake. He accuses all the left of being gangsters, which I don't know. It's funny to me for various reasons. But yeah, I guess throughout this book, I feel like Errol Musk just becomes worse and worse. And it seems like
he's truly, off the deep end at this point.
He's truly off the deep end. Yeah. And then the last note I had in this chapter was about Yoel Roth. So he did end up leaving Twitter. He finally got sort of fed up with the hypocrisy and some of the things he was being asked to do that he thought were immoral or incorrect. So he left, and he started getting targeted by, I guess, Elon supporters.
Yeah, with the posting of the Twitter files, some of his internal messages came out, and he just gets skewered based on, like, they're like, oh, I think I may have found the problem, and then it cites to part of the Twitter files with the post that Yoel Roth says, and then Musk basically goads them on.
Yeah, he left them hanging, basically. By the way, if my PhD thesis was called Gay Data, I would be so proud of that title. I just have to say, it's easily one of the best PhD thesis titles I've ever heard in my life. And yeah, this was Yoel Roth's thesis for his, or was it his PhD or his master's?
His doctoral dissertation.
Okay, yeah, his doctoral dissertation was called Gay Data, and it was sort of an analysis of some data about homosexuals. But people started accusing him of being a pedophile because I guess the analysis included, it was an analysis of like dating website data, right?
Yeah.
And some of the data was about people who were like fairly young because, young people are on dating websites. And so people started accusing him of being a pedophile.
Well, yeah, it's funny because it's this very nuanced question. It's like, it talks about how sites like Grindr deal with the problem of under 18 users. Like, how do you address that? And then, of course, all of the nuance gets washed away, and it turns into Yoel is arguing for children being able to access adult internet services. So it's like, but go on. Yeah, sorry.
No, I'm glad you did that because I hadn't written down enough context here. But yeah, I mean, the main point is just that people started attacking Yoel Roth for these utterly absurd reasons, even though all the evidence that I see from this book is that he did a great job doing a very difficult task, figuring out what to censor on Twitter. Yeah, he made some mistakes, and he admitted those mistakes. But overall, he did a great job with a very hard problem.
His address got posted by some tabloid, and he had to move.
Yeah.
It's just insane.
Not a happy ending for Yoel Roth, but I think his depiction in this book was very positive. So maybe that's part of the silver lining.
Yeah. I think that's all I had. I mean, I don't know. Twitter is certainly still not a solved problem, and it's not the free speech bastion that that Elon wanted it to be.
The CSAM bastion.
Oh my God. Yeah, it's so funny because at a point in this book, he's like, man, half of the people feel really alienated by this platform. Like half of this country is alienated by the actions of this platform. And then he's like, we need to fix that problem. And it's like, all right, now like 90% of the country feels alienated by the platform. So it's like, all right, mission accomplished, Elon.
All right, that seems like a good place to end.
All right, yeah, let's leave it there. Well, we'll see you next time. We're going to start with a chapter called Christmas Capers, whatever that could mean.
Nice. All right, see you next time, Matt.
All right, see ya.